Many thanks for staying with us. It's to Report Desk Africa. Now to another aspect of the economy in Nigeria. A group of Nigerian citizens are facing treason charges for their participation in the End Bad Governance protest. Now the trial of protesters, which included minors, commenced on the 2nd of September 2024 in Abuja, Kano, Kaduna and Borno courts. This has sparked widespread outrage among citizens and activists, prompting critics to say that the charges are a blatant attempt to intimidate those who speak out against injustice and against corruption. Now, the names of the accused are Michael Adaramoye, also known as Michael Lenin, Adeyemi Abayomi, Suleiman Yakubu, Opaoluwa Simon, Angel Love Innocent, Buhari Lawal, Mosiu Sadiq, Bashir Bello, Nuruddin Kamis, and Abdusalam Zubeiru.
Quite interesting. And we're now joined by broadcast journalist Kingsley Bassey, who is joining us from Lagos. Kingsley, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm going to jump straight into this because it affects all of us. You know, today it might be one journalist out there, somebody writing or speaking. Tomorrow it might be one of us who is seated in here. Now, you know, the protesters are being accused of terrorism and treasonable felonies. When I saw that, I was surprised. How does this, you know, how does partaking in a peaceful protest equate to the weight of these charges? You know, are the rights of citizens even being protected at all in Nigeria anymore?
Yeah, very good evening to you, Bernard. Good evening to you, Blessing. Thanks for having me. Well, we first, of course, you know what happens with cases already in court. We've got to be quite careful, you know, so we don't speak to the substance of the case, and you know what happens when you do that. But yeah, speaking to this in a broader sense, yeah, 10 persons, 6 counts charged against them. Well, it's disturbing to hear these things, but I'll start from the government side of things. So usually when things like this happen, because of the widened trust deficit in the country, it is normal to say, oh, this person stepped out to protest. So what's the problem? How do you take them to court? Are you trying to intimidate protesters and the rest? Well, you do know, too, that between the 1st of last month, August 2024, and the 4th or 5th day, we saw things that were very disturbing, too, by protesters, by persons who, you know, maybe genuinely wanted to protest, minors as well, several persons, especially in northern part of the country. We didn't see these cases down south, right? Northern part of the country where people were beginning to raise flags, Russian flags. People destroyed several facilities belonging to government. We saw that of the Nigerian Communications Commission, the Secretariat of Kano, and a few other places in Kaduna and the rest. Oh, well, you think about that. You think back to those reports. You think back to those visuals, and you say, okay, there's something there. Let's bring to book those persons who disrupted, you know, peaceful protests, who crossed the line. That's fine. Is government doing that now? You know, questions we need to respond to. We need to do more. As journalists as well, to check that this person who did this, including the minors who have been in detention for quite some time now, who have been denied, you know, access to their families and the rest. We need to check those, and those are some of the questions or some of the, you know, the things that we need to look at critically while we're having this conversation. Again, not speaking to the substance of the case in court right now. In general, when you look at least the 10 persons that have been charged with, you know, this charges, there are several charges, and I could just mention them, you know, one after the other, but maybe time won't permit us to do that. But you look at the charges in total, the summary of everything tells you, oh, they connived they colluded with the individual who the police says at large now and is wanted. They placed a 20 million bounty on him, and a Briton and a Nigerian as well. And they say, oh, these 10 persons, you collaborated with this person to intimidate, to harass the Nigerian police, to intimidate the president as well, to, you know, for some treasonable felony charges as well as mutiny and the rest. Well, again, this matter is in court. You know what they say about cases in courts. The one who's accusing has all the burden to prove that the person you brought to court and you're accusing is guilty of these offenses. But in general, this tells a lot about the Nigerian system, and this is where many persons have concerns. The persons stepped out to peacefully protest, and they were intimidated. In some cases, the police, as we saw, misused tear gas, misused, in some cases, the powers that they have putting on that uniform to intimidate, to disperse protesters. Who's charging the police for that? Who's doing? Is the police looking internally and disciplining, its officers? We had several persons also reportedly died during the protest. Who's checking? Who's probing that? Yes, and that's why people would say that's where government gives room, for people to say, for example, that this they bid to intimidate protesters from gathering next time, from even planning to the protest. We hear there have been promises by those who organized the first one, the one last month, that by next month, October 1st precisely, they're looking to protest again, considering the number of things happening in the country. Again, there are several questions we can look at, with several questions that need probing, that need responses, especially from the government side. What are they doing about several breaches, human rights violations seen during the protest last month? Nothing is being done about that, but 10 persons in court right now. And again, we need to note and say that there are several other persons who have not been charged alongside these 10 persons, and the Britain and the other Nigerian who they say are currently at large, who reports have it that they have been in detention way before last Friday when the federal government went to court.
All right, Kingsley, I mean, this is not the first time that there have been speculations that the government tries to make a statement with their actions. I mean, many people on the streets are saying that the reason that some of these people are charged with treason is because they know that it's not a bailable offense, and it's just a way of telling them that you're going to spend some time here, in prison until we decide to let you go. But of course, those are still speculations. And taking this out of court for a while, I would like to ask regarding the image that the government now has, the image that the people have of the government, both internally and externally. Not like they care, because if they did, honestly, they would have tried to live up to the name public servants, because that's what they are. But as opposed to trying to help us see that, okay, things are going to get better, help us understand the situation of things. Bernard just talked about it, the utter silence, the fact that we're not even hearing anything regarding the economy. They go ahead to do whatever they want to do. And this has, of course, in several ways, affected the image that people have of them. A lot of people are not surprised. I, for one, I'm not surprised. But what would you say what image would you say this has created for the democracy of the country and the government?
Looks like each time government gets close to redeeming herself, each time government gets close to closing this gap, this trust deficit that's so widening and continues to get widened. Doesn't matter who's president, who's inspector general of police, who's in charge of the military, who's in charge of certain agencies of government in the country. Each time government gets close to closing this gap, it looks like they find a way, they find reasons to widen it some more. Let's think about just the most recent case. This administration, one of the first things that was done by the Attorney General of the Federation when President Tinubu assumed position as president was to discontinue the case against Omoyele Sowore, which started, guess how? Through protest, the Revolution Now protest, right? He was charged to court. And for what? Same similar offenses. He wasn't granted, well, he was granted bail at some point. But I'm just saying this is the same line of action. We've seen this before. We're seeing this again, right? Each time, it looks like something is going to, the people are beginning to come together and something is going to happen. They are beginning to have a voice. there's some way government finds to suppress these voices. Again, I'm not speaking, and we need to be quite careful too. We saw, it was clear, we saw persons, move around streets in Kano State with flags. That's not acceptable. We saw people call for a military takeover. That's not acceptable. There are persons, even lawyers, who will tell you, well, it's a democracy. They have a right to speak in a certain way. It now depends if they go further, take steps further to implement these things. But that's debatable. Let's focus on what we can see and the things that we know of this matter. Again, referencing the Omoyele case, this same government discontinued that case. Why? Obviously because, there was nothing there, really. There was no reason to have Omoyele in court. There was no reason to keep him in Nigeria. Deprived him of seeing his family for years. Over and again, he was in court. This matter was adjourned. And like Blessing, I think, said in our question, we might see this stretch for a while. Well, you cannot go nowhere. With this charge, it is difficult to get bailed. This might just be another ploy to intimidate Nigerians, to show that we're in charge. We've heard persons in government say things like, no matter the level of protest, but not directly concerning this, but no matter the level of protest. For example, even the president did say in the build-up to the elections last year that no matter the level of protest, he was not going to reverse the removal of subsidy. That was before he removed subsidy, or said he would remove subsidy, or subsidy was removed. Several things like this. And we've seen, or we continue to see, that government continues to widen this gap. Again, each time Nigerians have reasons to believe that this government or this administration or that administration, has a human face, is listening to the people. There are other reasons to believe otherwise, like this one. All right,
Kingsley, let me quickly butt in here. We actually are running out of time, and very quickly, I want to ask, you largely talked about, the Chief Justice of the Federation throwing out the Omoyele case, and we cannot look at what's going on now without looking at the judiciary, which has largely been criticized for, almost like not actually, for being partial in certain ways, Again, now this is me moving away from the case on ground and looking at the judiciary directly. In 1 minute, what does this speak? Everything that we're seeing now, what does this say about our judicial system? Does it look like the law is being bent and amended for a group of people while it is being heavy-handed for another group of people? What are we saying about the judiciary in 1 minute?
Bernard, well, the courts and the way the judiciary work, the courts do not give life to cases. It is the people, it is the prosecutor who comes to court to say, this person has committed this offense. And so the court cannot simply just throw away these cases. The defense have to put, the argument forward to say, this is the case, this is not the case, and that is how, that is where the judge now says, okay, looking at the processes of the law, I need to rule in this matter, in this manner, on this matter. And so the courts really cannot they don't necessarily, it's just the same way the judge will tell you that, I'm not going to go fish for evidences for you, right? Now, in general, and by the way, I need to mention quickly, there are whispers here and there that, persons in government, persons who have their way around the judiciary, they know what courts to go to get what kind of judgment, that could be favorable. And this is not in any way to undermine the work that the fine job that the judiciary do, the judges do. But yeah, there are whispers here and there. And, I report in this line, right? And you hear things and you wonder where exactly, like you said, or you want to know where are we going to. Is the judiciary really still the hope of the common man?
All right, broadcast journalist Kingsley Bassey, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your 2 cents on this. Of course, like I said, like you rightly mentioned, we cannot exactly speak to the veracity of things right now, but we're going to look forward to seeing how this pans out. And hopefully these people they get good defense, right? And then at the end of the day, we're hoping that all of these power play stops, because that's what it is. But thank you so much for joining us once again.
Thanks for having me, Bernard. Bless you.
It's a pleasure. All right, it's been a very interesting conversation, but very quickly we want to run through the forecast. Like Bernard would say, look into our crystal ball to tell you what to expect in the coming weeks. And I'm causing him because I'm in, so you don't feel his absence as much. But very quickly, the first forecast is that after nearly 3 decades, Nigeria has achieved a historic milestone as Dangote refinery starts petrol production. Although negotiations between Dangote and the NNPC are still ongoing, the launch of the refinery is expected to significantly boost Nigeria's economy, and a lot of people are waiting for that.
And from West Africa, Nigeria, we move to Algeria in the north, where Algerians will go to the polls on September 7th. That's my mom's birthday, by the way. However, many voters feel indifferent about an election they believe won't change the current situation. 78-year-old incumbent president Abdulmajid Tebboune is expected to again secure a second term. The story of African leaders.
Yeah, I tell you. Interesting conversation.
Very interesting conversation, which I believe is not going to go anywhere anytime soon. Whether it's the conversation about those who are incarcerated or the current fuel crisis. The fuel crisis won't touch me well.
As in, it touch everybody. It touch everybody. Honestly. And sad to say that if nothing is done about it, this is just the beginning.
It's just the beginning, but the most sad part, or the saddest part, if you like, is that nothing may change, and we'll just learn to go with the flow, as has always happened. We've always learned to adapt. They say when they push Nigerians to the wall, they break the wall. I keep going. There's a word I say, we keep going back at that. But anyways, thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Report Desk Africa. Next week, you may see Bernard, you may not, but I'll definitely be here. Thank you once again. I'm Blessings Mosugu, the constant face on the show. And I'm Bernard Akede. I used to be the constant face on the show, but yeah, you may see me, you may not see me, but the show will remain. Like they'll say, Soja go, Soja come. Barak